Hello and welcome back to Shelf Center. This is Bryce. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thanks for liking and subscribing if this is something you end up enjoying. You never know, it could happen. Anyway, we made it. It's the top 10. It's the top 10 of my top 100 fantasy books. This is it. This is for all the marbles. So anyway, let's jump right into it. You'll see I did a top 10 a couple years ago. This has changed around a little bit. There's been a couple new additions, couple changes here, couple that I honestly didn't expect. So here we are, and I am extremely happy to talk about these top 10. Number 10 is a very recent addition, very recent read for me. It's going to be the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. Absolutely, this is one of those, it's urban fantasy, it's such a deeply emotional narrative. The characters are just, you just fall in love with them, and they make real choices. They make real, it's just real for the story. As much as you hate sometimes to see some of the choices, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I absolutely love it. So this is a very new edition. Jade City won a World Fantasy Award, and there's a reason for that, okay? Number 9, this is stuck in the top 10. Maybe a surprise for some, but I just absolutely love this trilogy. This is gonna be The Magicians by Lev Grossman. I absolutely love it. It's like Harry Potter mixed with Narnia, which are two of my favorite things. I absolutely love both of those, but it's like, if Harry Potter were honest, if Narnia were honest, if any of these fantasy books were honest, and these kids actually went through the process, went through the things that they went through, are they going to be stable individuals? Are they going to be making great choices? Are they going to have some trauma to deal with? And this does it in a brilliant way, in a way that doesn't, it's depressing sometimes for sure, but absolutely brilliant, I think, from the first book to the last. I read my eyes out with these books. All right, number 8, this is another one that's stuck in the top 10. And I've lost a lot of books over the years. This is one of the earlier ones that when I came into really just diving into fantasy, this was one of the first on my list. And then, of course, it was one of the first to go in my many moves. So it did not happen. I didn't keep a lot of books at first when I started moving. I was in college at first. So anyway, I do have one. It was a review copy that I did receive from Orbit, but it's Joe Abercrombie. It's The First Law. The whole series. I've read everything right now except for The Age of Madness, which I do plan on reading very shortly here, and I hear that's amazing. I absolutely enjoy this. It's so quotable. Joe Abercrombie has that ability to make so many things quotable, and I just love that. I still, in videos, and probably videos for this top 100, have quoted something from Logan Nine Fingers. I am sure of it, because I can't help myself. But there's so many things from the main trilogy, The Blade itself, Before They're Hanged, Last Argument of Kings, to Best Served Cold is amazing, Red Country, The Heroes. There's Age of Madness, which I'm dying to get to, and I'm very excited to read very shortly, but I cannot get enough. It's known for being grimdark. I just think it has a realistic view of itself, because you got to be realistic about these things, right? As morally gray of characters as you can get, but that address it and have to deal with it, right? For number 7, you might be surprised that this is all the way back at number 7, but that has a little bit to do with the fact that we don't have an ending. Are we ever going to get an ending? Speaking of being realistic about things, are we going to get the 6th book? Probably. Are we going to get the 7th book? Probably not. But anyway, we're talking A Song of Ice and Fire. George R. R. Martin. He's amazing and is a master. This is actually the first one that I really read. I've lent these out so many times. This one I still have somehow. The $3.99 version, the old school version. You can see I lent this one out, never got it back, so I had to get a newer version. Actually, have another version of A Game of Thrones. Then we've got, I remember reading this as a lifeguard, in between, not as I was lifeguarding, in my breaks. It's still a little water damaged down here from that. This is the original, back from '06. And then I remember, this is the famous A Feast for Crows, which I thought was going to be the last one at the time. And then this is the one that made promises that were not kept. The South was going to come out first. That's what this is. The characters in the south of the continent were going to come out first in this book, and then the North will address in the follow-up book, which didn't end up coming out till many years later. Literally, we have Meanwhile Back on the Wall. And that's exactly what this describes here. Anyway, that's frustrating to say the least. But anyway, I absolutely adore the series. And frankly, top 10, it's like all but interchangeable at this point. They're brilliant. I remember one of my best friends giving me Game of Thrones and going, I'm jealous that you get to read this for the first time. And he was not joking. And again, and I've read it multiple times now, and it's so good. It's still good. It's still fun to give to other people, although it's not as funny as it used to be because everybody already knows about it. But anyway, it's still fun. It's still mind-blowing. It's still where no character is safe, and I like that. Not any character. You can't even believe that anyone's going to survive this. It's dangerous out there, especially in Westeros. All right, this is actually a new addition to my top 10 because I had made a rule for that top 10 that I had to have read at least one other book, and I hadn't at the time. Now I have. Now I've read over 1,000 pages plus a novella, plus some other things. So we're throwing this one in for sure because I absolutely adore the series. We're talking the Stormlight Archive. And actually, The Way of Kings, this top one here, was a review copy from Tor at the time. I've also got my handy dandy advanced reading copy that I received at the time this came out for publication in August of 2010, if you can see that. It's really hard to see. There we go. So anyway, absolutely loved this the first time I read it. Then I read The Way of Kings again, and it blew my mind again. It's so good. Then Words of Radiance, I think might have even done better. It's somehow. So anyway, this is something, it is on my list to catch up this year and get further and get ready for book 5, which apparently will come out in December of 2024. So I'm very excited for that. But absolutely, there's so many brilliant things about this, but the magic system alone, of course, it's Brandon Sanderson. Magic system, he's so good at that. The characters are great. They're really fun. They're, you kind of get this one idea of them, and then I love how it like really it's delving deep into kind of their backstory. You learn a lot more about some of these guys, and you go, oh, okay, I understand why they're making these choices, why they, you understand them so much better. And I mean, just some of these ideas of just honor and found family and all these things, they just have so much going for it in the series. These huge tomes read like a quarter of the size. They read so quickly, at least to me. They're so much fun to read, and each page, it just flies by, and you're just deep into this world. There's so much, and you keep finding out more and more and more, and there's just so much to it. It's insane. It's clearly his love child, Brandon Sanderson. It's his magnum opus. It's just, he threw so much into this, and you just keep finding more and more, and it's so brilliant. So anyway, absolutely blessed. All right, I forget which series I said I had like the most motley collection of books. I think this might have beat it, actually. It's number 5, we're going with The Dark Tower by Stephen King. I'm even missing Wolves of the Kala and Song of Susanna for some reason. So anyway, these are absolutely, they're so crazy. They're nuts. It's a Western, there's magic, there's modern day, it's in the past. There's just so many things going on. It's nuts. It's crazy. It's Stephen King's imagination. Gunslinger, it's fine. It's fine. I need to reread it. But the drawing of the 3 is what drew me into the series. I say that with all puns intended, but it really did. This one, I remember reading this line. It was like, could there be shooting? Yes, I believe there will be shooting. Something like that. The Gunslinger is just great. But meeting our cast of characters here, the quartet is just brilliant. Then it gets to Wastelands, and you're like, what is going on here? It's so crazy. Charlie the Choo Choo. I mean, so many nutty characters. Villains, I mean, it's nuts. This is still my favorite, Wizard and Glass. Like I said, motley collection here. Somehow picked them up, used bookstores. There's so many editions of all King books, apparently. This is my favorite. I know a lot of people struggled with this one because it's a huge flashback, but I absolutely loved it. It's my favorite. I love the standoffs. I love the Western feel to it. And I act like I don't like Westerns. Apparently I do, but this one really got me. It's my favorite of all Stephen King, of all the stuff that he's done. And I've read quite a few. I realized it's like up in the 20s, and I just absolutely love the series. All right, number 4. This one sticks in here. I forget where it was before in the last top 10, but I know it was in here. One of my favorites. I've talked about her other recent book recently, but Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. Absolutely love this. Love just the dry sense of humor. Love that there's just so much into this, so much about Faye. There's footnotes that you can't miss. It's like you have to read it with the whole thing and be ready to be on a journey, because you're not getting to the end quickly. You're going at a pace technically, but it's a slow one, but it's absolutely brilliant. I just, from the first page, the humor, it's, you know, a little bit of Dickens, it feels like too. So many things going for it. I adore this book so much. I need to read it again because it was so brilliant when I first read it. I loved it. It was magical. Every single page. Loved it. All right, number 3. This is, oh, what's that? There's a whole thing missing there. You're probably going to be able to guess what it is. So we're talking The Wars of Light and Shadow by Janie Wertz. Absolutely just brilliant series. It's actually missing a book in there, I know. I pulled it out for another video. Anyway, I have not read the whole thing, but now's the time to read it. I am 5 books in, and it is brilliant. It's absolutely some of the best character work known to man, just ever put to page. Some of the most brilliant prose, it's dense prose too. It's complex, and I think that's why I like it too, but it's a little intimidating jumping into the new book, and I cannot get enough of this series. Even the technically the antagonist, the bad guy, the antagonist is, you understand, and you even kind of love, you kind of and it's so brilliant how she's done this to where you're like, not only completely understandable, but you're kind of rooting for, which is crazy. But each of these characters, there's so many characters in this that are just, that prove like what honor is and what true emotions are, and what someone's willing to do to prevent, not just to win, but to like save lives, and because you don't see that as much all the time, as this idea of like, instead of just winning, it's, I want to preserve the most amount of lives, and maybe that means I lose, and willing to do that, and that's a sacrifice. So this is absolutely brilliant. Number 2, you probably already know by now. These top 2 have not changed for me. This one's just brilliant. This one got me started really. Narnia might have been my first, and gave me a real love for books, but and fantasy especially. But this one really made me go, oh, I need to find worlds like this. I need to live in them. But this is The Lord of the Rings. So we've got The Lord of the Rings, the whole trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm rereading it right now, only the second time this year. That usually doesn't happen. I know people that reread this every single year, and kudos to them. This is, doing a buddy read right now for it, but The Fellowship of the Ring, almost done with it, and it is just so good. It gets to a point where you just can't put it down. There's so much going on. There's so many I just love the relationships of just being friends. It's okay to be friends. There's a love interest story too, but like, and that's kind of, it's epic and different in its own way too. But like, a lot of this is just like being there for your friends. Like, not everything has to be about romance and everything. I think that's what I love about it too. But this world is so in depth. There's so much to it. There's so much history, and it all works so well, while at the same time just being highly entertained, even though it's getting up there in years, right? It's an older book, and it still to this day entertains me so much. It entertained my kids. I read the first book to my twins. They were 10 and then 11 when we finished it. But they absolutely loved it, and they were talking theories and everything, and just had a blast. All right, I tried to grab all of them. There's so many. This one you may or may not know if you've seen the channel at all. But this remains my number 1 pick of all time. That's going to be the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This series is brilliant. That's why I bought extra crazy cool Subterranean Press version. I love this cover. It's my favorite cover of all time for Gardens of the Moon. The Andamander Rake is just brilliant. This series, and this is actually the first book. This is the first present my wife gave me on my first birthday while I was married, and you know, really kudos to her, right? Giving me the gift of my favorite series of all time. I didn't think it would beat The Lord of the Rings. That's the crazy part. I didn't think anything could, but the more I've thought about it, the more I've reread The Maleficent Book of the Fallen. I just love it, and I miss it when I'm not rereading it, and I pine for it. I absolutely love it. There's just so many brilliant moments, so many characters. Rereading Deadhouse Gates, it's just epic on a different scale than I've ever seen before. A lot of times I feel like you get into a series or of books and they get, you know, you kind of think, oh, this sounds really epic, and they are epic, but they still are kind of focused into just the lives of this, you know, this one group, this one set of people, and then they do epic things and all that. But I feel like The Maleficent Book of the Fallen is as close as you can get to really maintaining that epicness, that huge scale on everything, and really going, this is way bigger than anything I've ever read, anything ever, because it is following, I know obviously lots of series follow different characters, but it's following like gods, and you're just getting the whole pantheon and the whole idea of all these things, and everyone having different ideas about what power is and the convergence factors and all these things. And there's just nothing that I have seen in my book that has gotten this epic. And I love the characters, the humor in it. So you'll go from this epic, crazy scene of carnage and just craziness to like the funniest scene ever. And then what kind of underlies the whole thing is this idea of compassion. And that's the craziest part, is you're like, you're reading these insane things happening, and I'm in awe of Erickson's imagination, his writing, his philosophizing, all of it. And then you're like, and compassion is really the backbone of all of this. It is just, it's profound. The more I read it, the more I just absolutely love it, and I learn more. And so anyway, cannot recommend these enough. So that is it. That completes the whole top 100 fantasy books. Maybe it'll change soon, but this top 10 didn't change too much in the last year, a couple years. And so anyway, thank you so much for going on this journey with me. It's been a blast, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.